this video, I'm going to share how peptides make you lose weight, but at the same time can cost you your marriage. Last year, I worked with a peptide company. Before that, a decade in divorce coaching, identity, and relationship work. Now the clinical literature is moving slowly. The trials report what's measurable. The reviews use words like anhedonia and neuropsychiatry symptoms. All accurate, but all sterile. But the marriages disappearing right now don't have time for journals to catch up. I've been sitting with this for months, talking to physicians in my network, reading every paper I can find, building the framework I now use with every client. And I keep hitting the same wall because the research doesn't yet say plainly what every coach, therapist, and partner in the post-protocol fallout is watching happen in real time. So who am I to call this an epidemic when the research won't? As I told you in the beginning, I had lunch with my daughter, and she knows I've coached people on Zoom in our home for over 10 years, heard the muffled side of 1,000 sessions, but we have never sat down and walked through my thesis, not once. I told her the other day the new direction is going to focus on the psychological side of these weight loss medications that are causing divorces. She didn't pause. Yeah, the Ozempic epidemic. If it's changing one thing, it's obviously changing everything. That's what she said. My 18-year-old who has never read a clinical trial, never sat in a coaching session, never seen my framework, said the entire thesis of this video back to me before I could finish the sentence. Here's what I want you to sit with. When the next generation can see the pattern that the published research has not yet caught up to, that is not coincidence. That is the visible part of something the system hasn't built the language for yet. The medication does not install a divorce, it amplifies what was already running underneath. For some, the gap stays quiet. For some, it opens like a door no one knew was there. My 18-year-old daughter named it in 8 seconds. The journals will eventually catch up, but the marriages won't wait. So let me show you what this looks like when the gap opens and nobody is watching. What happens when the person taking the medication, the GLP-1, is the same person selling it? When she has every reason in the world to believe it's safe because her job is to believe it's safe. This is one of those stories. A former client who became a friend of mine over the years. Months ago, right around the time that I was making the decision to pivot my entire personal business in this direction, he and I were having lunch. And I told him what I was seeing in the industry, especially going back to all my previous divorce clients, finding out 1 in 3 was on a GLP-1 when they went through the divorce. Yeah, missed that one a few years ago. Anyway, the pattern. The marriage is falling apart in a way that didn't match the people inside them. People making permanent, lifelong decisions in the blink of an eye while their chemistry was temporarily changed by a GLP-1. And he stared at me and his jaw dropped right over his salad. He went quiet. Then he said, "Anthony, that's my wife." His wife works in this industry. She sells GLP-1s, reps the brands, knows the data sheet by heart. And she took this medication herself just because she wanted to lose about 10 pounds, but she never stopped. 17 years of marriage, 2 kids. He says before this, they had what every long marriage has, normal stuff. Nothing that pointed at a divorce. However, after she started, everything changed. Her drinking went up. Nights out turned into weekends gone. He was home with the kids most of the time. And the language that she used about him, loser, deadbeat, dead weight, divorce, got casual, like she was talking about the weather. He thought he was failing as a husband because he had no framework for what was actually happening. There are women out there right now sitting alone in homes that they've lived in for decades, trying to figure out who their husband became. The behavior on the outside that makes no sense. The man they married would not have done what this man did, and the system around them has no language for it. So they take it personally. They carry it forward as a failure. They carry it as their fault. Here's a story. A woman found my channel, the very first video, booked a 1-hour session, and the first thing she said was this: "I've been with 2 therapists for 2 years. I just need to make sense of this. 30 years married." She described it in the way long married do. We didn't have problems. We weren't perfect. We were just us. Then he started Ozempic, a GLP-1. All of a sudden, the sex stopped first. Then our conversations stopped. Then any form of intimacy, not just physical. The eye contact, the warmth, the small moments that they built together for 30 years. He eventually had an affair. Now, this was a man who, in 3 decades, had never given her a reason to question him. She kept asking the question every partner in this position asks, why? What I told her is what I'm going to tell you right now. When a man or a woman feels nothing inside, dead inside, when the reward system goes completely flat, not just the food noise, when the part of them, the real part of them that used to feel connection, joy, desire, meaning is suddenly muted, volume all the way down, the behavior on the outside does not match what is happening on the inside. What looks like or actually is cheating may be a man trying to feel something or anything again. What looks like cruelty to you or me may be a man or woman unable to access what used to make them feel alive. What looks like an asshole may be a person panicking at the disappearance of his own inner life and reaching for anything, any trigger or signal that they're still alive. I am not excusing this behavior at all. I'm simply explaining the mechanism that I keep seeing all the time. There is a difference. See, the Buddha taught us one of these foundational teachings, that the visible behavior of a person is a symptom of an inner state. So that means greed, ill will, delusion, and their opposites. Those are what we are really watching with our eyes and ears, not the behavior itself, but the inner state the behavior is revealing. The nuance most people miss is this. The teaching does not say behavior doesn't matter. Behavior matters enormously. The teaching says, do not mistake the symptom for the source. Now, if you judge the behavior without seeing the inner state that produced it, you will misname the entire situation. You will see a betrayer where there is a man who cannot feel anymore. You will see a cold woman where there is a chemistry she did not even know she was drinking. You will divorce a stranger thinking they were always that stranger. The behavior was the smoke. What lit the fire was something that nobody even named. When I talked to her about this, she started crying. Not loud, quiet. The kind of crying that happens when a piece of yourself that you didn't know was missing finally comes home. She told me if even one person I worked with the last 2 years had said any of this, it might not have changed the outcome, but it would have changed the way it ended. We could have had a real goodbye. That is the cost of the gap that nobody's watching. It's not always the marriage. Sometimes it is the goodbye. She didn't come to me to save the marriage. It was already over. She came to me to find closure no one else could give her. And she found it in a 1-hour conversation with somebody who was finally telling her the truth. If you are about to start a peptide journey or a GLP-1, and you want to learn more about this, join my email list using the second link in the description. Now, I want to tell you something that I have not said on camera before, because I have stood on the other side of this exact pattern, and it nearly destroyed me. Most coaches in this space speak about this from one side, the side of the person taking the medication or the side of the person watching their partner change. I have stood on both. Years ago, long before I had any of this framework, long before I understood what was happening underneath what I was watching, I was engaged to a woman I loved, a nurse, someone who, very credentialed, should have known what was inside the syringe before she pushed it. She wanted to lose 10 pounds too. She had plateaued on her own protocol of keto, intermittent fasting, so she got on Ozempic. She paid full price. Within a week, the ring came off. Not because I'd done something wrong, not because we've been fighting, not because anything in our life changed except for one thing. By then, she had a name for me, Juicebox, because I'd been honest with her early in our relationship that I was on a hormone protocol for years. Years of work I had done to manage the real medical condition, something I told her because I was building a life with her. And the name had landed before any actual behavior did. The verdict was already confirmed. So she didn't have to listen to anything I said. I tried to communicate. I asked questions. I stayed grounded. I did everything a man trying to repair a relationship does. And every single thing got reframed. So standing up for myself became abuse. Asking a question became control. Speaking calmly while she escalated became evidence that I was cold. So I had to walk away. Not because I wanted to, because she'd ended the possibility of any conversation. I had no name for what happened to her. I had no framework. I didn't know yet the medication amplifies what's already there. And whatever was already in there in her, found a door, and she walked right through it. I'm telling you this for one reason. I am the only coach in this entire space who has stood on both sides of this gap. The man whose body changed under his own hormone protocol, and the man whose partner changed under hers. I know what it feels like to be the one whose chemistry rewired him in front of people who couldn't see it. I know what it feels like to be the one watching someone you love disappear and then get labeled the villain just for noticing. The pattern does not care which side you're on. It does not ask whether you are the one taking the medication or the one watching it work. It only asks whether anyone was paying attention to what got amplified. I have stood on both sides of this gap. The pattern does not care which side you're on. It only cares whether anyone is watching. So now you know what I've seen and what I've lived. The last thing I want to tell you is why I built what I built. And now every story I just told you points to the same answer. So those were 3 stories, 3 different sides of the same gap. A man losing his wife, a woman losing a marriage she didn't even know she was vulnerable to. A man, me, losing a partner he was ready to build a life with. 3 completely different chemistries, 3 completely different relationships, 1 pattern underneath all of them. The chemistry shifted, and nobody was watching for what got amplified. No one challenged it, no one questioned it, and the network just mirrored it. I have spent 25 years inside this work without knowing it would become this work. I've led men's circles in the Mankind Project. I have led multi-city Buddhist organizations. I'm trained in ministry, stage, and identity work. I coached over 200 people through divorces, relationship rescue, identity collapse. I navigated my own across more than 1 transformation, and I learned the territory by walking into it without any map. And every single one of those rooms taught me one thing. Behavior is the symptom. The inner state is the source. And nobody in the medical system around any of this work is trained to watch the inner state. So I built it. Sacred Longevity is not a coaching offer, and it's not just a clinic. It's an operating system around the protocol, the part nobody in the industry built. The medical side, the identity side, the relationship side, in one place, watched by one team. The entire time, the chemistry is shifting underneath the people who trust us. The man who lost his wife, he can't have her back, but he now has a frame and a team. He's now navigating it without being alone. The woman with a 30-year marriage, she can't have her goodbye back, but she has closure and a coach who can sit with her through the rest of what this season costs. The version of me who walked away from that engagement, he didn't have any of this. He had to build it from scratch, alone, across several years. That man is the reason I created Sacred Longevity. So no one has to navigate this in the dark the way that I did. And remember, my 18-year-old daughter saw the epidemic in 8 seconds. The medical system will eventually catch up. But your marriage, right now, can't wait. That's why I built Sacred Longevity. So before you start a GLP-1 protocol, or before you lose someone you love to one, you need to understand a lie this industry was built on. Watch the video on your screen because the transformation doesn't end when the weight comes off. That's where it starts.